Hi everyone, Indoor Bush from Bush League Games, and today I'm just going to be going over my homemade TCG, the Flipside TCG, how to play and win the game. So the Flipside TCG is a two-player game where players battle it out in turn-based combat to decide who will get to use the last remaining functional launch pad on Earth. Allies available to a player can range from advanced but malfunctioned machines, super evolved plants and wildlife, otherworldly beings from space, or the forgotten few remaining humans on Earth. For deck building, each player builds a deck of 35 cards, including no more than 3 leader cards. Cards are limited to 2 copies mostly, but some may eventually be limited to 1. So a typical deck would probably be 32 normal regular cards and then 3 of the leader cards. The game field has 3 areas. It has the resource area, which has the leader deck, the main deck, the battle token bank pile, and spent pile. It also has the combat area, which has the active leader zone, the battle zones, and the equip zones. And then finally the launch pad, which has the excess area and launch area. The main objective of the game is to assemble 10 plus allies on your launch pad that collectively satisfy the win condition of the leader card in your active leader zone. One of the things that makes this game unique is that it has something called the ancient slab mechanic, and in the middle of the field between the players is where the ancient slab can be found. It's an old mystical stone slab that can control Earth's day and night cycle. So obviously it has a dark and a light side that when flipped, all cards in battle zones must also obey and flip as well. One counter is added to the slab automatically during every end phase, and once it accumulates 5 tokens, that's when it flips. And when it does flip, all flip effects on the field are triggered when this happens, even if the cards themselves did not flip. Speaking of effects, there's 6 different effects that you might encounter while playing the game. I'm just going to go through them quick here. The trigger effects. Effect activates when certain criteria are met. Then you have voluntary effects. These are the ones that can be activated anytime during your turn. Equipped effects. If a card is placed in the equip zone behind a card in the battle zone, it's equipped to that card, and the effect on the equipped card is applied to the card in the battle zone. Cards in the equip zone are unaffected by the ancient slab, so they do not flip unless via some kind of card effect. When the card that the equip card is attached to leaves the field, the equip card is discarded. And just right there, I want to make a note, discard in this game means to return the card to the bottom of the owner's main deck. So I know that's different from other games, but that's what discard means in this game. It's just shorthand for returning the cards to the bottom of the owner's main deck. So just remember that moving forward. Next we have rapid effects. These are activated from the hand and can be activated even during your opponent's turn. Continuous effects, the effect continues as long as the card remains on the field. And then finally flip effects, they activate during the flip phase if the ancient slab flips or if the card is flipped by card effect. Another very important note is that cards that do not match the ancient slab, meaning that if a card has the light side face up but the ancient slab has the dark side face up, that card cannot activate or continue its effect. Of course, this excludes any cards in the equip zone and leader cards, so it's just for cards that are in the battle zones. So now I'm going to go over the main resource for the game, battle tokens. Each player receives a bank pile of 10 battle tokens at the start of the game. You can see the bank pile here from earlier. And these tokens can be used to play cards to the field, draw additional cards from your main deck, add additional counters to the ancient slab to make it flip faster, or attach material to your active leader cards. It's important to remember that battle tokens are a limited resource, so you only have exactly 10 at all times. They never change sides of the field, so you and your opponent should each have 10 at all times. Battle tokens spent to play cards to the field are attached to that card until it leaves the combat area, and then once that card leaves the combat area, the tokens go back to the bank pile. Whereas tokens spent on anything else, like drawing more cards, attaching material to leader cards, those tokens are moved to the spent pile until your next action phase. So every action phase, the spent pile is sent back to the bank pile and it just replenishes it. But very importantly, you must have at least one battle token in your bank pile at the start of your action phase, or you lose the game. Can't go bankrupt. So now I'm just going to go over the basic cards, the design and layout. You can see the power stat in the top left here. This is basically its attack and defense. It's not health. It's more like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it just has a stat, and then whoever has the highest stat is, the more powerful card. You also have the light dark indicator here in the top right, but it also should be obvious by the shading on the card and other aspects. But this is just to be sure what side is light, what side is considered dark. Because not every card has a light and dark side. Some have two darks, some have two lights. And then down here in the bottom left, you have the card cost to normal play. So you can see for Shadows of the Sea, it has a 2 token cost, indicated by these icons here. And then on the other side here, these are your additional tokens needed to get to the launch pad. And I'll explain that a little more later. And then card effect right here in the middle, you can see this has a continuous effect. Both players skip their end phase. Okay, so playing cards to the field, there's 3 ways to do it. First is normal playing, and that's indicated by the icons on the bottom of the side, as I said on the last slide. So you can see on the right side here, Big Shroom has a 1 token cost to play, and Penguinja has a 2 token cost to play to the field. So what you do is just take those 2 tokens out of your bank pile, attach them to Penguinja, and then play to the field. Effect cards do cost more to play than non-effect cards because they have that effect. So you can see even though Big Shroom has a higher power stat than Penguinja, it only has a 1 token cost, while this one has 2 because it has that effect. So that's something to keep in mind when building a deck. The second way to do it is to sacrifice play, and all sacrifices cost 1 battle token to perform. And when you use a card you control as a sacrifice, you're allowed to play any card from your hand that has power equal to or less the total power of the sacrifice card or cards plus 100. So an example is if you want to use Penguinja as a sacrifice, you could play any card from your hand that had 230 power or less, since Penguinja has 130. So that's basically how it works. And cards played via sacrifice inherit battle tokens of the sacrifice card plus the 1 spent to do the sacrifice. So let's say Penguinja has 2 tokens at the time that you want to sacrifice it, and you play a card that has, let's say, 210 power. That card's going to start out with the 2 tokens that were on the card, and then the 1 that you use to perform the sacrifice. So that's 3 total. And then Penguinja would be discarded. The third way to play a card to the field is to free play or special play. These 2 terms mean the same thing. Some cards might just say one or the other. And basically the card ignores the normal playing requirements due to card effect, and it starts with 0 battle tokens attached on the field. And then after that, go into the overweight rule. It's another unique aspect of the game. And basically how this rule works is that a card is considered overweight when it is carrying its max battle tokens. And you can figure out the max battle tokens by looking at the card. The total number of battle token icons on the card is its overweight limit. So Shadows of the Sea has 1, 2, 3, 4 icons on the card. That means that it can carry up to 4 battle tokens at once. But once it hits 4, it's considered overweight. And overweight cards cannot attack or directly attack. They cannot activate their effect. They can still be affected by other cards, and then they gain access to the launch pad. And it's very important that cards may never hold more tokens than their limit, unless a card effect says otherwise, even when the result of the battle or card effect would typically grant them additional tokens. So basically, you want to get Shadows of the Sea up to 4, and then you can send it off to the launch pad. But once it has 4, it's kind of a sitting duck. It can't attack, it can't use its effect or anything like that. So speaking of the launch pad, cards can be moved to the launch pad from the field under the following conditions. And this can only be done during your turn. The card must be matching the ancient slab, and the card must be overweight, which we just went over on the last one. Now you can skip the first requirement by spending 1 battle token, so it doesn't have to be matching the ancient slab, but it's definitely a lot cheaper if it is. But it definitely has to be overweight. And so you move cards to either the excess zone or area or the launch area. If the card does not match any of your leader's win condition slots, or if you have no leader card in your active leader zone, all the cards would go to the excess zone. Whereas if a card matches the leader's win condition, you can move it to the launch area. In general, the excess zone and launch pad are treated the same. They're only really there just to help the player track their progress of the leader's win condition, so you don't have to be constantly sorting through cards. Cards can move freely between the 2 areas within the launch pad. Let's say you change your leader card and it has different win conditions. You can rearrange this area to show how far along you are for that leader's win condition. So leader cards, they have 2 effects actually. They have an overworld effect, which is a continuous effect that is it's pretty basic usually. Knight in Rusting Armor has plus 20 power to green cards as his continuous effect, so it's just a weak little overworld effect to give you a slight advantage. And they have another effect called the leader effect. This one's a lot more powerful. For Knight in Rusting Armor, this is a continuous effect that reduces the green card's cost by -1 if it has an effect, which is very powerful. But to activate that effect, you got to have both material cards attached to the leader card. So for this card example, it's a Junkyard Survivor and Knight of Unfortunate Proportions. So if you have these 2 cards attached to this card, this effect activates. But until then, this effect is doing nothing. The cost to attach a material card from your hand to the field to the active leader is 1 battle token for each card. If the leader card does not have any material, you can flip it at no cost to the player from the light to the dark side or vice versa. The effects might vary between the sides. If it does have material attached though, you have to discard any material before you can flip the card. If you have no card in your active leader zone, you can add one from your leader deck during your action phase or your load phase. On the bottom here you can see the win condition requirements. So for Knight in Rusting Armor, it has 8 green circles and 2 question marks. And looking down at the key down here in the bottom right, that would mean that you would have to have on your launch pad 8 green cards and then any other 2 cards. So you have to have at least 10 cards in total. At least 8 of them have to be green. And each card can only satisfy 1 condition slot. So if you have a green card on there, it only satisfies 1 of these bubbles at a time. It can't do multiple. Besides that, if a player wants to discard an active leader card with no material to their main deck, say to swap it for a different leader card, you discard it to your main deck, not the leader deck. And then you have to, if you need to get it back, you have to hope that you can just draw it again from your main deck. And if you're lucky enough to draw it from your main deck again, you can add it back to your leader pile and then draw an additional card. So you really don't want to be discarding active leader cards unless you definitely will have an advantage by switching out. Because once you make that swap, the leader card that you swapped out, you're probably not going to see again for a while. Onto the turn phases. There's 5 phases. They can be remembered by the acronym FABLE, F-A-B-L-E. So first phase is the flip phase. And at the start of this phase, if the ancient slab has accumulated 5 tokens, it is flipped. All cards that do not match the ancient slab also flip. So if it flips to the dark side, any cards in battle zones that show their light side have to also flip. All flip effects are triggered during when the ancient slab flips, regardless of if the card that has the effect actually flipped or not. If there are multiple flip effects at once that are triggered by this, the activation order is determined by the player's alternate selection of one trigger card at a time. So if there's 3 cards that have flip effects, I have 2 of them, and my opponent has 1, and it's my turn, I would pick the first card, they would pick their 1 card that they have, and I would pick the last card that I want the effect to resolve. So the first card that you choose on that little chain is the one that resolves first. And then obviously the player whose turn it is chooses the first card. There is no flip phase on the first turn of the game, obviously. And player second gets to choose what side the Ancient Slab starts on at the start of the match. If the Ancient Slab is less than 5 counters when you begin this phase, you can do 2 things. You can either add counters to the Ancient Slab by spending 1 battle token for each counter you want to add, or you can just do nothing and move directly to the action phase if you don't want it to flip. So moving on to the action phase. At the start of this phase, you move any battle tokens in the spent pile back to the bank pile, like I said before. And just a reminder, you must have at least 1 battle token in your bank pile at the start of your action phase, or you lose. During this phase, players can play cards on the field, which the cost varies from 0 to 3. You can draw cards by spending 1 battle token for 1 card. Flip cards in your hand at no cost, but you have to show your opponent what card you're flipping, and they have a chance to look at it if they want. You can send overweight cards from the field to the launch pad, or I guess it's called endgame area here. I'll have to change that, but you can send overweight cards to the launch pad at no cost if they meet all the requirements. And then you can activate card effects, including leader abilities, and some card effects might have battle token costs. Once you're done doing that, move on to the battle phase. All cards get to attack once per turn, and they can choose any opponent card that they want to target. When cards are in battle, the card with the higher power stat wins. The losing card is discarded, which as a reminder means to return it to the bottom of the owner's deck. The rewards for winning battle: if there's a successful attack, the player that attacks earns battle tokens equal to the cost to normal play to defeat a card. And then at least one of those battle tokens has to be given to the actual card that made the attack, and then any excess can be given to an ally card if you want, or you can give it all to the attacking card. And then also battle tokens earned from a successful attack are taken from the attacker's bank area and attached to the cards. So this goes back to when I was saying that the battle tokens never change sides of the field. So if you successfully attack and defeat one of your opponent's cards, you take tokens out of your own bank pile and add it to that card. If the reverse happens, a successful defense, the defender earns 1 battle token that must be added to that card that was defending. And same thing, earned battle token is taken from the defender's bank area and attached to the card. If your opponent controls no cards, you can directly attack them. The reward for directly attacking your opponent is, during the battle phase, you can add 1 battle token to any card you control, and then you move 1 battle token from the opponent's bank area to their spent area. And then once the battle phase is concluded, you have 2 options. You can either discard 1 card from your opponent's launch pad with power of less than 100 times the number of direct attacks. So if you directly attack your opponent twice in 1 turn, you can discard 1 card from their launch pad that has a power of 200 or less. So you just take 100 times the number of direct attacks. Anything that has power less than that, you can take out of your opponent's launch pad, which is very strong. The other option, if you don't want to do that, is you can discard 1 material card from your opponent's leader. And if the leader has no material at all, you can actually discard the leader card in general to the main deck. So that's good if you that leader card on your opponent's side is really giving you a lot of trouble. If you're able to directly attack it, you can either cancel out its effect by discarding 1 material, or you can just discard the leader entirely. And another important thing to remember is if you directly attack your opponent 3 times in a single turn, you actually win the game. So that's another way to win the game, is if you directly attack your opponent 3 times in one turn, but that's very difficult to do. So after the battle phase is over, you have the load phase, and this is basically, action phase 2. You can do everything that you can do in the action phase, you can do in the load phase. There's just not that requirement to have anything in your bank pile. So play cards on the field, draw cards, flip cards in your hand, send overweight cards to the launch pad, and activate card effects. After that, you have the end phase. You signify the end of your turn by adding 1 counter to the ancient slab, and then the game continues with the start of the next player's flip phase. And that concludes the video. That's everything that you need to know to get started playing the game. Hope it was easier to understand this time that I explained it. Let me know what you think. If you're still watching, I appreciate it. Have a good one.